Hello dear students, today in this video we are going to discuss the lesson how to organism reproduces. So reproduction is a process in which an organism reproduces its own kind, right? It's a method by which organism gives birth to a young one which is similar to their parent. So reproduction is very important as no organism on earth are immortal. So whatever organism that is existing at present, they are going to die one day. So in order to continue life on earth, reproduction is very important. That is why every organism, they tends to survive, and in order to survive and continue their species, they have to reproduce. And for this, different organisms from unicellular to higher multicellular plants, animals, and also human beings, they undergo various modes or different methods of reproduction. So today in this video lesson, we will be discussing about the asexual mode of reproduction in unicellular as well as in higher multicellular organism. So let us. So asexual mode of reproduction. First, we will try to understand its features or what happens in asexual mode of reproduction, right? So in asexual mode of reproduction here, first of all, there is no variation. There is no variation, means the organism produced are the exact copy of their parent, right? You can say the offspring produced, okay? Offspring is used, the term which is used to define the baby, right? So offspring produced are genetically similar to their parents. Right? So the progenies or the offspring that are obtained from asexual mode of reproduction are exactly similar to their parent, or you can say they are genetically same, means they are the exact copy of their parent, right? So that is where we wrote it in the first point as there is no variation in asexual reproduction. And second, and you can also write that asexual reproduction involves only single parent, right? So involves only single parent. So in asexual mode of reproduction, there is only one parent that is involved, and there is no formation of gamete, or there is no fertilization. You can write here no formation of gametes, and no fertilization, right? So these are some of the features of asexual mode of reproduction, where only a single parent is involved for the process. There is no production of any specialized cell or any sex cell or any gamete. So there is no fertilization, and also the offspring or the progeny obtained by this method are exactly similar to their parent, or you can say they are the identical copy of their parent, right? So it does not give any variation. So these are some characteristics of asexual reproduction, and this asexual reproduction is common to all organisms, including the unicellular protists like amoeba, or even the fungi like yeast, okay, and the multicellular plants, including higher multicellular plants, including angiosperm, gymnosperm, bryophytes, pteridophytes. In fact, all groups of plants can reproduce through asexual mode of reproduction. Then comes your animals, simpler, but asexual reproduction in case of animal is generally is common to simple animals. Simple animals, I mean the organism or the animal who have simple body design. Say for example the poriferans, coelenterate, or even you can take the example of some platyhelminths. So they may undergo asexual mode of reproduction as their body organization is simple, right? For example, planaria, which is a platyhelminths, it can reproduce through regeneration, right? But most of the animals, they reproduce by sexual mode of reproduction. So basically you can say that sexual mode of reproduction is more common to more complex body design, means the organism which has more of a complex body structure, right? So that is a brief idea about asexual mode of reproduction. Now let us see what are the various types of asexual reproduction. So there are different types of asexual reproduction which I am going to list out. So number one, there is one type called fission. Then you can write budding. Then fragmentation, then regeneration, then there is vegetative propagation, then there is after vegetative propagation, then there is also spore formation, right? So these are some different types of asexual mode of reproduction which is common to many organisms, like for example amoeba. They reproduces by mode of fission, or you can say a binary fission, where the cell, since they are a unicellular protist, their cell divides into two, means the cell membrane, they get separated. So in such cases you can say the mitosis cell division itself is a mode of reproduction, because what happens in case of mitosis cell division is that the cell splits into two new daughter cells, right? So that can be a mode of reproduction in case of unicellular protists, for example amoeba. So the mode of reproduction in amoeba is binary fission, as since one cell gives rise to two new daughter cells, right? So here this division of the cell is by the equal division of the nucleus, which is called the karyokinesis, then cytokinesis, division of the cytoplasm, and then finally separation of the cell into two new individual cells. So here one more thing you need to remember is that in case of amoeba, the separation or the fission is not specific. Since the body structure is irregular, so separation or splitting of the cell can be in any way, right? Since their body itself is of irregular shape. But there are some instances, say for example leishmania, which is also a pathogen for the disease called Kala-Azar. So this leishmania, they have a longitudinal body shape with a flagella. Say for example, so leishmania, which is like this, a longitudinal body shape and a flagella. So if the division will be like this, then two halves will not be equal, right? So in that case, the unicellular organism having a proper shape, they follow a specific orientation. Either it will be lateral or vertical, right? So if it divides vertically, it can separate equally, including the flagella, right? So the vertically they can get separated. So in this way, they also follow binary fission, but in a specific or in a particular orientation. But for amoeba, they do not follow any orientation, as they do not have a fixed and a proper body shape, right? So this is one thing that you can remember here. Apart from this, in case of fission, there are some cases where the condition is not favorable for reproduction to happen, right? So for example, amoeba can reproduce through fission, but under unfavorable circumstances, they do not undergo fission. Rather, the amiculi or the daughter amicula, they remain intact within the cell and they multiply more in number within the same cell. So when a favorable time comes, then it gets ruptured and the daughter amiculi are released. So this way of reproduction is called multiple fission. Multiple fission where a single cell gives rise to a multiple cell. There is one more example, like reproduction in case of plasmodium, a pathogen for the disease malaria, right? So that is about multiple fission, right? From one cell to many cells. So in this way, some unicellular organisms reproduce through the method called fission, which is also an asexual mode of reproduction, right? next is budding. So in case of budding, here the organism produces a bud-like structure or buds on their bodies, right? Say for example, the yeast cell, right? For example, in case of yeast, example yeast. So yeast is what? Yeast is a unicellular fungi, right? So the yeast cell, so on the mother body, it starts to form a bud-like structure, right? It starts to form a bud-like structure here also, and later on, upon maturation, these buds will get detached, right? It will get detached and it will become an individual new cell. So such method is called budding. So this budding is also common in some simple animal with simple body organization like hydra. Example, hydra. So hydra is another example which also reproduces through budding. So the hydra, which is strictly marine animals, which is sedentary. So this hydra is a free living organism which is predominantly a marine animal. So this hydra, they start to form a bud-like structure on their body. So it does not detach from the mother body immediately, rather it takes some time. Say for example, for differentiation and also for maturation, it will take some time, the bud will take some time. Suppose the bud may be like this initially, but later on this bud will undergo some differentiation and modification and will mature. So upon maturation, this will get detached from the mother body and it will become a single individual daughter hydra, right? So in this way, the hydra also can reproduce through the process of budding, right? So budding is again an example of asexual mode of reproduction, which is common to organism which has a simple body design, right? So that is about budding. So now the next type of asexual mode of reproduction is fragmentation. So from the name itself you can understand that it breaks up into parts, right? It breaks up or into pieces. So we have a similar type. One is fragmentation and the second one you can say as regeneration, right? So fragmentation and regeneration is somewhat similar, you can say, but they are not also exactly same. There is a difference between regeneration and fragmentation. So in case of fragmentation, what happens is that the body becomes or breaks into parts. Say for example, in case of a spirogyra, the spirogyra. So the spirogyra, they breaks up into parts. Suppose this is the structure, spirogyra, which is a multicellular algae, right? So what happens? It breaks up into parts. So you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4. So each of the part will behave as a new individual spirogyra. So such mode of asexual reproduction is called fragmentation, where the body breaks into pieces. Whereas about regeneration, it is common to some simple animals, including the planaria, which is from platyhelminths, right? So for example, the planaria, which has a simple body design. So if this is broken into pieces, suppose two pieces, one head, body, trunk and the tail, right? Head, trunk and tail, suppose. So this will break into pieces in each of the piece. Suppose the first piece is the head, and second piece is the body, and third piece is the tail. So here during regeneration, what happens? It will regenerate and it will regrow its other parts, right? For example, it will grow its head here and the tail there, right? And it will grow its head as well as its body, right? So in this way the regeneration occurs. So this is in case of planaria, which has only up to tissue level of body organization. So fragmentation and regeneration, where the organism breaks into pieces or the parts, and each of the part becomes a mother body, like in case of fragmentation in Spirogyra. But in case of regeneration, each of the piece or the broken part of the organism will regenerate, or it will reform its cut parts, right? So that is called regeneration in case of planaria in simple animals. Since planaria is an animal, belongs to the phylum Platyhelminths, right? So in both the cases, if you see that simply from the body parts, it's not possible for all organisms to regenerate or to reproduce. It means only some simple organisms, in case of fragmentation also, like Spirogyra, they can break up into pieces and then they behave like a mother body, or they become an individual organism, like in planaria also. So someone, if they breaks up into pieces, there are some special type of cell which has the ability to regenerate. So they just regrow or reform the lost parts. But of course it is not possible to higher multicellular organism, because their body is more differentiated into tissues, organ and organ system, which cannot be compensated or which cannot be regenerated by simply breaking and reforming, right? So these are common to only some simple organisms about fragmentation and regeneration. So next we have is the vegetative propagation. So this vegetative propagation is common to plants, where the plants reproduce by its vegetative parts, including the roots, leaf, stem, etc. Right? So root, leaf, stem, these are the vegetative parts of the plant, by which some of the plants can reproduce. So apart from this, there are other structures, different names are also considered, like the rhizomes, tubers, right? Like the rhizomes, tubers, corms, suckers, etc. So these are different terms and words are there. In fact, in simple language, you can simply say the vegetative part, means there is no involvement of any special cell or any fusion of two different special cell from two different individual plant, right? So whatever be the vegetative structure, may it be root, leaf, stem, or even the rhizome, tuber, corms, or the suckers, they all belong from the same plant, right? So the same or the single plant itself will involve in reproduction in this case. So since here the reproduction is through the vegetative means, that's why it is known as vegetative propagation, which is also an example of an asexual reproduction. So this is common to plants only. So in vegetative propagation, there are many different examples, including the bryophyllum leaf. So in bryophyllum leaves, there are nodes and internodes, like they have a reticulate venation. So here at these nodes, they start to develop a new leaf or a new plant, right? So they start to develop a new plant at the nodes. There are certain nodes where the formation of the new plant occurs or takes place. So if you place it on a soil, so it will start to propagate, or it will regenerate, or it will form as an individual plant. So this is an example. Apart from this, there are also organisms that reproduces through stem. There are quite many examples of some flowering or flower plants. Even the rose, they can be propagated with the help of stem. The stems are cut and then they are placed in a water, or then later on transferred to the soil, because it will initiate the growth of roots while placing inside the water. So once the root came up, it can be replanted into the soil. So likewise, even jasmine, the flower, and also you can take the example of tapioca, right, or even potato. Potato is actually a modified stem. The potato, that tuber, that the one that we eat, you must have seen the potato, they have eye spots, right? So from there, if they are kept in a basket for longer time, you may see that some projections or some growth of mass of cell occurs at the eye of the potato. So those outgrowths are actually what? Those outgrowths are the future plant. So if you take this potato and put it in the soil, it will grow into a plant, right? So this is how it can be propagated. So this is also an example of vegetative propagation or an example of asexual reproduction. So you can see till now, whatever different types of reproduction that we have discussed here, only one single individual organism is involved, whether it's a plant, an animal, or even if it is a microscopic organism or a single celled organism, right? So whether either they will split into parts and become a new individual cell, or there will be fragments and become a new individual, or the broken piece or the part may form or reform the lost parts, right? Or in case of vegetative propagation through the different vegetative parts, right? So all of these are example of asexual mode of reproduction. So the next we have is the spore formation. The spore formation is again a type of asexual mode of reproduction where it produces a spore, right? So the organism bears an organ which is called the sporangium, which forms spores which has a protective wall or a protective cover over them. So these spores are dispersed in the air or any medium that is surrounding it, and whenever a favorable situation comes, they germinate into a new individual organism or into an organism. So spore formation is common to organisms such as fungi, or even the plants like pteridophytes, like the ferns, etc. So in the structure called sporangium, the spores are formed and they are released into the air. So this is why you may have observed sometimes in the bread or on the surface of the bread, if it is not eaten instant, if you have kept it for longer days, you will see that there are some greenish or some whitish substance going on it. So those are actually the fungus or the bread mold, or you can say the rhizopus, right? So it has grown on the bread through spores. As the spores were present on the air, so it get contact with that bread, right? As these are the fungi, and they will start to grow and they will start to germinate as they have got a favorable condition. They have the substance for their nutrition and a favorable temperature and also the moisture. So they will start germinating on the surface of the bread and they will grow as a bread mold. So this is an example of spore formation. So in this way, the organism in asexual mode of reproduction, they can undergo various strategies or different ways or methods they can follow in order to reproduce. But what is common to any types is that all of them, the new individual produced will be genetically as well as phenotypically, means they will be exactly similar to their parent. There will be no variation and they will be the exact copy of their parent body or the parent cell, right? So that is all about asexual mode of reproduction. So thank you so much. I hope this will help you in understanding about what is asexual mode of reproduction and what are these various types. So thank you so much for today and hope to see you with more video lessons. So keep learning and thank you so much.